I'm Dana Frank. I'm the owner, CEO of First Avenue Productions, and also the founding board president of the National Independent Venue Association, representing thousands of independent clubs, theaters, festivals across the country. Throughout my work running venues and organizing a national coalition, one thing has been clear: Amy Klobuchar shows up. She doesn't just understand the cultural and economic value of the arts, she fights for it. Whether it's standing with us during Save Our Stages, taking on ticketing monopolies, or now with the No Fakes Act, she constantly fights for people behind and making the music. Here at First Avenue, we strongly believe in community, and we believe that our artists and creators play a vital role in building that community. That's why it's so important that we do everything we can to protect their art and identity. It's about safeguarding the integrity of artists like Minnesota's own Corey Wong, whose unique style and presence can't authentically be replicated by any algorithm. The No Fakes Act is about protecting artists in the age of AI, ensuring that their voices, faces, and identities aren't replicated without their consent. It's smart policy, and it's exactly the kind of leadership we've come to expect from Senator Klobuchar. Thank you again for being here. Please join me in welcoming a true Minnesota original and an unwavering champion for the creative community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dana. And thanks for your leadership. I love being introduced as a true Minnesota original before this particular topic, because this is a lot about what it is about, which is protecting people's rights and their right to be original and their right to create things. And thanks to the Fine Line, thanks to Dana for her work in the Twin Cities. I mean, it's pretty incredible, her leadership. Which of course started here, but then has blossomed to the nation in terms of getting Save Our Stages passed as head of NEVA. And that call that we had on a weekend night right in the beginning of the pandemic, where we knew that they were the first to close and the last to reopen, and how we could actually build a coalition, not just their coalition, but a coalition in Washington to support their work, has really made a difference. Of course, the biggest investment in the arts in the history of America, $15 billion, but who's counting? The implementation to make sure that it got out to the venues, which was also very tricky at the time as we were in between administrations way back then. And then, of course, the work we've done together taking on ticketing, which has been acutely bipartisan, ask Kid Rock, as well as it resulted in a major investigation in the Justice Department, legislation going through Congress, executive orders from 2 different presidents now, and I truly believe none of this would have happened if we hadn't had that phone call in the middle of the night and then found partners, as she's done so well. And so now we have a new fight, and this fight has been brought on by the existence of AI. And I want to first say that AI is something that can bring great things. Just ask the Mayo Clinic, just ask people involved with rare diseases about how AI can actually bring us to the discoveries and on the cusp of technological know-how that we could never imagine possible even a decade ago. I think it was David Brooks of the New York Times who put it well when we get to the next subject here. He said, "The people in AI seem to be experiencing radically different brain states all at once. I found it incredibly hard to write about AI," he said, "because it is literally unknowable whether this technology is leading us to heaven or hell." So it is on us as people who are whose jobs it is to protect the backs of people and to protect our economy in America, to make sure that it doesn't lead us to hell. America's economy has been the envy of the world, in part because we produce ideas. We make stuff, we invent things, we make music, and what else do? We export it to the world. So to make this whole ecosystem work, you've got to have rules in place. You have to have laws in place to protect intellectual property. And you look at why some of these other countries around the world have lagged behind for decades and centuries. It's because they don't have rules in place, so everyone copies people's stuff, and then if you invent things, so what? You don't get rewarded for it in any way. So that's really at the core of this. It's sort of a almost old-fashioned economic concept that when you invent things and make music, that you need to have that protected under the law so that you can then do what you want with it. Cherish it yourself or sell it or play music at great venues like this one. So that is right now at risk. And when you start messing around with people's right to make their own music and their whole lifelong work, then you start messing big time with our economy. So while it may seem like we're right just in the middle of a venue right now talking about music and, Corey's tour he's taking in Europe, we're really talking about the entire economy because it's about protecting things. And if AI with no rules is allowed to just copy people's voices and put them out there, they will lose that economic engine, and we will lose the economic engine of invention. So that's why we have this legislation to protect property rights. That's really what it is, of people's work. It creates a federal intellectual property right in someone's voice and likeness, and that allows them to license that if they want. So if you copy people's voices or copy their likenesses, then you get penalized big time. Penalized with money. Online platforms are required to take down these images unless they're the actual images of the person or licensed by the person. That is key to all of this because anyone who looks at Facebook or some of these places knows what's going on. And we're not here talking about satire. We're talking about the actual use of the images. So I've had success on a bill that was on a different subject, but it shows that we can actually make progress, and that's the legislation called the Take It Down Act about non-consensual sexual images, either AI created or real. That's a bill that Senator Ted Cruz and I have that has passed the Senate and was sort of just slowly moving in the House, and then the Trump administration, Melania Trump, came over to the Capitol, endorsed it, and now we're going to get this through the House. It went through the committee, and we're going to get this bill signed into law. I bring this up because, one, it's a great story to show there's bipartisan support for this work, but two, that is part of this concept, right? They're required to take it down within a certain period of time, and it just shows you this isn't just a pie-in-the-sky idea. So this is a bill that we originally worked on last year, and it's with Chris Coons and Marsha Blackburn. You wonder why Marsha Blackburn? Do you know what state she's from? Anyone know? Tennessee. What does Tennessee have in it? Nashville. Marsha Blackburn, myself, and Tom Tillis, the Republican senator from North Carolina. That also has a lot of music. And so... and Chris Coons has a lot of lawyers in Delaware, I don't know. But anyway, and all four of us are on the Judiciary Committee. And so that has really brought us together on this bill. And we've worked with stakeholders from consumer groups to musicians. And we just did a big event on this with Randy Travis, who has experience. He lost his power to sing, but owns his own digital replica of his own voice. And so was actually a pretty powerful speaker at our event that we did. So what does it do? It requires online platforms with user content to remove it. I mentioned that. It has major damages if people don't remove it. There are First Amendment exceptions that I mentioned for things like protected speech, parody, or news. And so it's a pretty good bill, and it's gotten really positive support, and it's called deepfakes, right? But again, we have kept this bipartisan from the very beginning and made it very clear that this is not okay. There have been a whole raft of examples of people having their songs or voices stolen. That includes the voices of Harry Styles, Beyonce. There were deepfake photos of Brad Pitt as someone asking for money out of a hospital bed. It was totally a lie. It wasn't him. All of us in politics have had experience with this. That's why there's a separate bill that I have about keeping any ads or images on, except for, again, parody, all those exceptions on the internet. That's a separate bill I have with Josh Hawley to ban the use of some of those when they are misleading. And the public pays the price when this happens. Last year, consumers lost over $2.9 billion through imposter schemes, and easy access in deepfake tech will lead to more scams. So Erica's own husband, Tim, once got a call in the last year, my state director here. Their son's in the Marines, and the dad answered the phone, and it was their son's voice saying he's in trouble, he needed help, and their son was on a deployment that was secret, and Tim immediately thought that cannot be our son, and hung up, and it wasn't their son. So what's been happening is for people in the military, they have been scraping their voices off of Facebook and social media, and then using their voices to ask for money or ask for help, and the next person they call may be a 90-year-old grandma who's actually going to give the money. And so those are the kinds of things we're seeing with this illegal use of deep fakes. So back to where we are, these deep fakes pose a threat to artists and musicians, consumers, and anyone whose work or life could be undermined by a fake video. And so that's why we are pushing to pass this bill. And it's about making sure that deepfake technology isn't used to rip people off, either in the consumer setting or obviously in the artist setting when it's their entire livelihood. And they have a right to their own images and to their own voices. And our law has always been like that. It's just that our law needs to be adapted to the current technology that we're dealing with. And our laws need to be as sophisticated as the perpetrators that are trying to violate them. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Corey Wong, who is, as many of you know, a fantastic guitarist, songwriter based in Minneapolis, famous the world over, but also has been willing to use his voice and his talents to speak out to help other artists and that would be potentially victims of this kind of fraud. And I think it also makes the point this will violate the rights of any artist. And with that, I turn it over to Corey. Thanks. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's great to be here today. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing in this. As an artist, I know personally that one of the hardest things to do is to have a unique voice, to have something that feels like your own fingerprint. And this is something that deserves to be protected. So many of us in the modern era are trying to figure out how to have something unique that stands out, have something that cuts through the noise. And now, with the way the technology is, honestly, it's incredible. It can replicate the way that any of us speak, but also the way that many of us just play our instruments. And I think one of the important things about art is that it is a human-to-human connection, that there is emotion involved. I think there's value in that, and I think there's value in protecting that, so artists don't lose that aspect of themselves or even lose the inspiration and just fall into a trap of not wanting to create art because they feel inadequate compared to what a machine can do. And also, as has been said, many of us have been victim to scammers or people pretending to be us, whether it be in playing or in our voices or even in videos. My own grandmother got a phone call by somebody who said that they were me because they had mimicked my voice quite easily, because my voice is just out there from however many podcasts I've done. They mimicked my voice, and the only reason that my grandmother didn't fall for it is because they referred to her as grandma, and I don't call her grandma. I won't tell you because I don't want you to now try it. But that sort of thing, I think as many of us age and as the technology grows, we are more and more at risk of that sort of thing. If you see a video of one of your friends asking for help, of course, you're going to have some empathy and want and need to have some discernment now. So I find it wonderful that we have some protections in place and that we want to protect artists and individuals throughout their everyday life.
Okay, very good.
Yeah.
All right. Questions about this? Anything? It's a big deal because it's like the first to have this kind of bipartisan support. Our bill, the Take It Down Act on the non-consensual, and by the way, that may sound small, but there's over 20 kids a year committing suicide from this because they put their they send a picture to a girlfriend or boyfriend, and they think that they're going to get it dates or someone they want to be, and then it goes public, and they are so young. It's usually middle school kids, and they kill themselves over it, and it's just horrendous. So that thing is actually a bigger deal than it thought, but it also paves the way to putting more requirements in place that the platforms have to take things down. And so this thing's going first, and then this bill would just be a much bigger deal for protecting intellectual property in our country. And we are working with some of the platforms one of them was there at this event when we unveiled this bill. So hopefully we can reach some kind of agreement so that we can get this done. Obviously, the motion picture people were there. Fran Drescher was there from the Actors Union, and it's nothing like being here with Dana, but but the point was that we really we brought together a lot of interest, because there's a lot of disputes about different interests that the studios will have or the record industry will have, but we have put those aside now because this is an existential threat to everyone, and come together on their agreement on this bill. Yeah. Yeah.
To police it, is it the artist, him or herself, that can call up and say that's not, or if there's some other ties that can call up?
Well, I think that it's upon notice, so it's got to be you yourself, and you'll have to go through a thing. But remember, you kind of register your image with somewhere, so it'll be easy to show that it's been violated. So that's what it is. It's kind of like how you register a patent, or you register an album cover, or you register any kind of work. They're kind of used to this in the industry, or a song. This would just be part of that. It's your own voice and your image. And then once they can tell that it's not the one that's been registered. And then you give them notice, and then they have to take it down at a certain time. And then there's, for individuals, $5,000 per work, so every time it would come up, or actual damages, whatever more. Online platforms, $25,000 per work, and this would be numerous times over and over and over when they do it. And then we have some, there's like, it varies depending on basically what the offense is. Mm-hmm.
Well, we know that a lot of people don't comply with the laws.
Right. Really?
I know, right? Could this lead to arrests?
Well, it depends on, remember that one that happened in New Hampshire with that magician pretending to be Joe Biden's voice way back? Like, that led to a criminal investigation. So if it can be shown that what you're doing is somehow violating the laws, the criminal laws, because you're trying to stop voting, that's what that was, then you can be investigated. This on its face is more civil damages for just simply, like you would for any lawsuit. Like if someone stole a recording. Remember how when you have people stealing lyrics and pretending them, there's always lawsuits over this? This is going to be more straightforward, but it's that same kind of thing. It's in civil damages. That isn't to say that something couldn't be criminal, depending on what the argument could be made on theft, yes. And the intentionality of it and other things. But when the platforms are putting it up, they're not the ones creating it, but the fact that they're facilitating it puts a requirement on them and damages on them. And that was an important part of it, because we know people are going to keep trying to do this, and they will be sued, and they may be criminally prosecuted, but the platforms just kind of skate by and say, we don't have any liability, and they're yet the means for them to put this out there. So this actually creates civil liability if they don't take it down.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay.
Take one question off topic if you don't want to answer.
Okay,
it, fine.
that's okay.
The executive branch is trying things that's never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And the last couple of weeks, it looks like they're starting to work around the judiciary.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any in your branch?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any concern?
Our
that
branch.
if the party lines don't.
Our
have to
branch,
be-
we're all friends in our branch.
Well,
It's
I
like
know
great.
you're not.
No, so I think the way we look at this, and I said this at the inauguration, which I had agreed to chair before I knew who would win, that there are 3 branches, equal branches of government under our Constitution, and we all have a job to do. And I always will remember that all 9 justices of the Supreme Court were there that day. They're usually not all there. They were all there. And right now, most of this is playing out when there's a violation of people's rights or the laws not being followed or the Constitution with the courts, and including some incredibly conservative judges appointed by Reagan, appointed by Bush, appointed by Trump himself, who have said, no, this is against the law. And so in a number of cases, the administration, depending on what it is, freezing funds or rehiring employees, they've actually complied with the law, but clearly in some egregious examples, they've chosen not to, including the one involving the wrongful deportation, and where they've admitted it was a mistake. And so that one has garnered a lot of attention because that's one where they decided not to follow the law. And so that's going to be, the judge has said if they don't follow the law, he can go to the Justice Department and ask them to enforce it against the secretary or the people who won't do their jobs. Or he could, as he has said himself, and he's right under the law, he's a judge, he can appoint his own outside prosecutor. So that is within the power of the judges. So that's where we are right now. And if I had to predict, I think at some point when they start appointing a prosecutor, they will most likely comply with the law.
Thank you very much.
Okay? All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.
Appreciate it.